Hey guys, welcome to another cinematic review from the Trailerviewboys. Today we're off to see 1917. Super excited about this. I'm just about to pick Alex up actually, who's the less handsome of the two of us, so let's do it. Welcome back guys to the Trailerviewboys, another cinematic review. As we said at the beginning of the video, 1917, another film from Sam Mendes, who is quite well known for doing the last two James Bond films, Skyfall and Spectre.
Which were the ones that got them back on track, really.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They were the last two Bonds that really brought it back to being a Bond.
Yeah.
So you got to give them credit where it's due.
And we've got a bit of a rarity in this today, because usually me and Alex come out of the cinema and we're usually quite, the same of opinion of what we thought about the film and, how we enjoy it, but we're quite polar opposites.
I think that's going to happen this time around, guys.
So this will be an interesting one. So what we'll do, we'll give our own little separate small spoiler review each of what we thought.
Yes, and, spoiler alert, this will be spoiler.
Yeah, it will be spoiler alert. So think of it what you will, and don't forget this is just our opinion. Go and watch the film yourself and make your own opinion. I would definitely say go and watch this at the cinema.
It's definitely worth a watch.
It's definitely worth a watch.
We've both come out the cinema. We definitely both agreed on that.
We agree on that,
it's
for sure.
Definitely worth 100%, a watch.
100%, yeah, agreed.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, a couple of things I was really looking forward to prior to watching the film was the single shot scenario. So if you've made it this far and you've seen our attempt at a single shot scenario, which was really cool to do, actually. Thank you to the Light Cinema for that.
Yeah, those guys are awesome, man.
Yeah, they're really cool. I was really looking forward to the movie just for this alone, because he hinted in it. I don't know whether this was Sam Mendes as a director trying it out before and knowing he had this film going on. But
if you've been and seen any film over the last 3 months, for the trailer of 1917, you would have had the director. You'd have had the sit down. We really wanted to do this in one take. We were fully aware when both of us went in there that this is going to be a film.
But you're probably forgetting that in Spectre, at the very beginning, The Day of the Dead, it's a single shot motion.
Right, okay.
So
it's
James
been a while
Bond,
since I've watched it.
so at the very beginning, James Bond is walking through the Day of the Dead.
Yeah, then he goes into the hotel.
Walks up the stairs, in the lift, comes out the lift into the
all one take, is
bedroom, and then it follows him in the suit on top of the building, and he sits and opens his gun.
Don't know when Irish then.
Is
that all one take, is it? Is that all one take, is it? Well, hats off to him, eh? Sorry, that's all one take. That was all one take.
Sorry, I can't do an Irish accent, but yeah, that's all one take.
I'm actually really impressed by that. That totally flew over the radar for me.
So I think
under the radar.
Sam Mendes was either testing this at the time, thinking he's going to have an entire film to do this in at some point, so he gave it a try and obviously successful at it. But
it's a cool quirk.
Before going into it, this is something I was really looking forward to. So actually, coming out of the film, it worked really well. So well, in fact, that I think it may cause a trend in other future movies. I hope.
I don't know about that. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. A few sort of minor things that I wished had been done better. Bearing in mind, I enjoyed the storyline as a whole, and the message he was trying to show the viewers. Essentially, 2 soldiers get picked for a mission to take a message to stop an attack against
the Germans.
Against the Germans. But for me, I wish the 2 characters had a bit longer for us to build a bit of sensitivity to them, so that we felt a bit more invested in their characters.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. The 2 characters, the dynamic you get to see between them for the time that they are together is fantastic.
Yeah, one you'll correct me on this one. One seems a bit more, has a bit more experience within what's happening within war.
One seems a bit more, for the terminology that you used back then. One seems a bit more shell shocked.
Yeah.
One seems he's seen what goes on.
Yeah.
And the other one seems, I don't want to say naive, but he seems new to the battlefield. So he has a lot of, he still has a lot of optimism, and still has a lot of innocence.
Yeah.
To what's going on, and that dynamics, it's really well done, because the guys, the one guy, like you were saying, is very stoic.
Yeah.
He keeps himself to himself, because he's just, it's just horrific war. Mustard gas. It was bad scenarios.
But there's a scene early on in the film where the 2 soldiers are on their mission to deliver this message, and one of the soldiers is still quite heartwarming against mankind. Where one of the enemy's planes actually crashes.
No, it's not an enemy.
I thought he was an enemy.
No.
Why did he stab him then?
Because he's in shock. He's just been in a plane crash with his legs on fire. He thought, and don't forget, at that point that was behind enemy lines. Right. So he thought that was a German soldier. That was helping him. So he stabs him, which is what makes it like, oh my God, he's just stabbed him.
Right. Well, either way, I wish that hadn't have happened at that point. I kind of wish that the journey for these 2 soldiers had carried on a little longer, or maybe they got separated, but the single shot scenario still followed one character, and then they found themselves again. And if this character had to die, maybe he could die later on once we were invested more in the characters.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It doesn't give you a lot of time to have an emotional connection between the 2 main driving forces of this. Movie before they kill one off, and it's a bit like, I mean, you're a bit gutted, don't get me wrong, because you're like, oh shit, it's dead, but it's like, I've only been watching it for fucking 30 minutes at this point, so like, okay, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But the effects.
No, totally agree. The visual really effects.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine the actual planning that was involved for this single shot scenario, plus the effects to be, because there's a time these effects have to shoot off. So, for instance, the last scene where they're jumping off the front line to fight the Germans,
going over,
and all the bombs are going off. Yeah. They would have had to have timed that for this.
Oh, down to a T, mate. Down to a T.
Can you imagine
absolutely
the preparation that went into this?
To be fair, it is a technical masterpiece.
Yeah, hugely.
Because the one shot, you find yourself, again, because of us going to the cinema and seeing like it being fucking advertised, and it's all in one shot, like, you know what I mean? So you find yourself for the first 30 minutes of this film really paying attention to it, but then you sort of forget about it, so it just becomes a film again. So, you're not just like, oh, is it single shot, is it not?
Yeah.
It just is. So after like 20, maybe 30 minutes of like, okay, it is all in a single shot, you forget that. So then by the time this great finale comes of like our boys going over, pressing the Germans, and he's running and there's bombs going off and he's running into people as well, because he's running sideways, so they're running running forward, he's running sideways, so he gets knocked over. To time that, with the practical effects of like the explosions, because it's dirt just being flew up into the air, with people they had to run into, because again it might have been accidental, I don't know, but something tells me it wasn't. That was a purpose. You need to run into him, and with all it has to be in one take, and that no one runs into the camera guy. Like it's a technical feat, and it is brilliant for that. I've got to give the film that. It is for that. It's fantastic.
It's really it's not just a serious film. There is a hint of
a bit of humour
in there. There's a scene where the 2 guys want to get passage over no man's land, and they have to find a certain general or a certain commander, and he's kind of like, what, you want to go and walk out? Well,
the best part about that is when he's like,
it's up to you guys,
settle a bet for us, is it Thursday or Friday?
Yes,
and the guy's like, it's fucking Monday, and he's like, oh shit, we're both wrong. Like, okay, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, like they've been there that long, they forgot what day they're on. And there's a bit of humour if you know your history a bit about like the stoicness of how a British officer has to be.
Yes.
So there's that real touching bit between Benedict Cumberbatch and the lead. Again, I can't remember his name. Where he's like, he's breaking down like, today they tell us to stop, tomorrow they'll tell us to go.
Yeah.
Next week it'll be something else. We'll get through this one way or another. And then the guy's just, just looking at me and he goes, "Now fuck off."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's how
that's the exact words that he uses.
That is what he says. But there was that throughout history, even in World War II, your commanding officer was not to be seen to fraternise with any lower ranking officers. So in that scenario, that's exact to have been so humble and human. He would have snapped it back like that. So it was like
Benedict Cumberbatch has a very small window.
It does, to shine.
But it's such a big scene, or effect, or emotion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to say props to the casting director, whoever it was that was in charge of doing the casting.
Yeah,
because
some brilliant names.
It's an all-star cast list, really.
That doesn't
best
always
of
mean,
British.
Yeah,
and you're quite
British,
right. Doesn't always mean it's going to be good.
Look at Cats.
I'm never going to watch it.
Don't get me started.
Don't get me started. Yeah, exactly. To be fair, after watching Cats, I bet this was like watching an Oscar nominee fucking film, wouldn't it, man? I bet this was just like the best film in the world. Oh my god!
Yeah.
No, to be fair, but the casting director, he did really well, and each individual, because there's quite famous people in this, individually, because you only spend about 5 minutes, because you really were tracking basically. It's almost like third person. You almost feel like another soldier that's along with these two soldiers. That's the way it's been shot, and each 5 or 10 minutes you get with some of these leading roles, they shine. They are that, they're memorable. Like, you know what I mean? That they spoke to that guy. Oh, they spoke to this guy, and it's just. And Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, I'm a big Cumberbatch fan anyway. To be fair,
sure, great characters he's played in the past.
But he just has a massive range as well.
Yeah,
and he shows off in this one as well because
amazing actor.
In this one he's sort of. Again, if you know your history, it's funny because of knowing that, like, that's how the commanding the CLs were. But it does come across as this really heartfelt guy at this one moment, and then an absolute arsehole the literal next. But it's so believable, like, so.
But you know what?
The casting, it was fantastic.
It's really good to see that Doctor Strange is actually going in the past and experiencing things for himself. It's cool, man.
Oh my god.
But no, again, some of the not just the special effects of these, but the practical effects. Just as they cross no man's land, it's really good to see that they do
a lot of that to be built as well.
They do get hurt, the barbed wire, and he gets hurt, and then he falls his hand into a German body, which is like,
that bit me and you literally went like that, Derek. There's a bit where he cuts his hand, which is bad enough anyway. Yeah. You've cut your hand. It looks, and it's barbed wire, so it's quite deep. And then the same hand is cut as he climbs over a hole, as he's trying to like stop himself from sliding down too quick. Yeah. He puts his hand in a German body. It looks like it's been there for about 3 months.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And straight through, and it's like that's bad enough. But when you know he's just cut, like, because they've made a point of seeing that he's just cut an open wound on his hand, and it's like oh my god, like I would genuinely, I'm a bit of a pussy when it comes to that. I would have genuinely just been like. You know what I mean? Just knowing I put my hand in that.
And following that character, this is where me and you had different opinions because he didn't use his weaponry enough when he was being chased, when he was on his own afterwards. There was a couple of scenarios where he could have turned around and just shot at the enemy, and he didn't.
Yeah.
You were quick to say, well, in
for
the
me,
height of everything.
For me, in the height of like. It's better to have people shoot at you and not know exactly where you are, and you get away when you're on a mission as such.
Right,
like the message is more important than the messenger at this point.
Yeah,
like, which is another thing I will dive into in a moment. But so if he had have used his rifle, it would have been, especially at the dead of night, it would have been pinpoint accuracy. They knew exactly where he would have been able to surround him. He wouldn't have been able to get the message. The film would have ended a lot. However, I did agree with you though. I didn't feel there was enough. I mean, there's plenty of action. We're not trying to say there's no action in it, but it's action that happens sort of around those the characters more than those characters are involved in.
Correct.
And I was a bit sort of like, I get why, because it's not glorifying war. It's not that kind of film.
It's not.
It's not a like war. It really is. War sucks, especially World War One.
I think it's just trying to tell a story.
Yeah. I just disagreed with I just don't think if you're trying to tell a story that's as in depth and emotional as World War One, that a single shot frame mission can do that.
It's loosely based on a true story from listening to other reviews online.
Yeah,
it's loosely based on a true story.
Well, you cap off your thing, so I've got a few things I've got to get into. So,
well, the last thing I would want to say really is yes, definitely go and watch this film in cinema because experiencing a single shot scenario for me, if you're interested in the way cinematic films are made, this by any means was not lazy at all.
No,
some of the scenes I actually do, you kind of think to yourself,
and the sets.
How have they done that?
From the costumes to the sets.
And what was really interesting for me for the characters that actually dedicated the time to actually acting it really well was I'd read that this all the gear they have to wear.
Yep.
Well, they started wearing that 6 months before shooting.
And I'm not surprised.
So they could get used to wear things around the pockets.
Yeah.
Because actually, apparently, even to things like having tea bags, cups, you had that with you. You had everything with you. And that instantly reminded me of a scene where his friend gets killed and he decides to try and pick him up and carry him, but he can't. And I did think while watching it, why can't he pick him up for? Surely he's strong enough to pick his friend up and carry him away.
Because he's wearing he's wearing I think it's almost I think it was an extra £75.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
on your person.
Yeah, and it's and for me it does shine a light on how it would have been to be in war at that time, the effects it had on people, and what they had to live through. Because when they're walking through the trenches, they spend a lot of detail on making sure each man in the trench is actually portraying something in a different way. Yeah. So you can see some are asleep, half asleep here, there. Yep. Some guys are having a bit of a fag and rolling up and chatting with a guy, and then. I really enjoyed the attention to detail in this film.
Oh, it's paramount. Like, if there is no way in any shape or form you can fault them.
Yeah.
For the attention of costume design, set design, and the level of detail that's gone into this film. Like you feel like you're there.
So all in all, I really enjoyed this film. I didn't get bored at any moment. I just wished that the characters, I had a bit more time to get invested in who they were.
Absolutely.
So. Your thoughts?
No to absolute shit on the film. No. First of all, what we ring off is I agree with all the stuff you've said to a certain degree.
Yeah.
The practical and CGI effects were seamless. There wasn't a point where you could go, oh, that was CGI, or oh, that's practical. Like, it just all looked like everything happened now. I haven't done the research, so for all I know, it was 100% practical, but for my money, it isn't. But it's seamless. So at no point could you really question what bit was CG, what bit was practical. And we're big fans of practical effects, because you just sometimes you can't be. I mean, obviously you can't do a practical effect of Iron Man flying through space. No, it's impossible. So CGI.
But some of the most classic films in history,
exactly,
are practical. Yeah, because
they had to be. They had to be back then.
Think outside the box so much.
Yeah, and they had to be back then as well, because the technology weren't there.
Yeah.
So we're big fans of that. The level of detail, again, like Damion was just to really reiterate, the uniforms, the trenches, they're not depicted. I think the nicest trench you see, it's a bloody tongue twister that, is the last one, which turned out to be, basically it was a newly dug one.
Yeah.
And that's why it looks so good in comparison to the one that's been there for like probably the better part of 2 years.
And you know what, you're right, because I'm thinking back now, and some of the earlier scenes where they're walking through the trenches, they actually have like...
They're horrific.
They have... they're like telephone poles with the wires going across. Is that how they used to communicate from one side to the other?
Well, this is what I'm about to get into. So, the runner, as it was known in World War One, was basically it was the only sort of reliable way of communicating.
Yeah,
because they did have, and it does mention this in it. So fair play to for the historical accuracy. They did have the use of telephones, and they did have the use of Morse code.
Yeah.
But obviously that had to run across a solid wire connection, and a lot of times what the Germans, and what we would do to the Germans, is make sure to bomb specific points where we knew their telephone wires and communication wires were, to make sure...
Protect the communication.
Because one of the worst things you can have in any battle from hundreds of years ago and to this day is a communication breakdown.
Yeah. It
can make the difference between a victory or a humiliation.
Yeah.
So runners were still a big thing in World War One. Not so much when World War Two coming, because after World War One they invested a lot of money into technologies and stuff like that. And especially when World War Two was in its hype, money got thrown at technology like you wouldn't believe. But anyway, runners were something that were heavily relied on. My only issue with this film is I know it's based on true story, and me and Damion have the utmost, deepest respect for anybody that's got a military family, being in the military, or associated with military, and especially back in those times. I mean, the military now lives an absolute lap of luxury in comparison to the conditions. I mean, you've got trench foot, you got people were being sent home not because they'd been injured during a battle, but because the conditions they were living in was so bad that they'd have to lose a foot.
I wouldn't last.
Hence, it was called trench foot.
Yeah,
because the conditions were so bad that having the foot chopped off and then even been shot at.
I wouldn't last 5 minutes. Yeah.
So, so you know, just there's no way we could ever fully understand really or appreciate what both sides, Germans and ourselves, really went through in World War One. But. And this is basic research, and I'm not a massive historian. I like my history, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like, I couldn't tell you exact dates and what regiments and all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot more runner officers stories that were a lot more compelling and were a lot more graphic of the conditions of World War One.
So you didn't feel that this story was as compelling as it could be?
No, I didn't feel it. It did its bits. It did its bits to portray how sort of horrific war is, and to and it tried its best to sort of give you an inkling of how painful.
And to emphasise on that point you're making, there's a scene where he's actually, I think he's in the river, or he's had to jump in the river to get away, and as he's come to the end of the river, he's having to crawl over dead floating bodies to get out onto the
So there is, don't get me wrong, they make an effort, but it's something about watching that film. I was like, it didn't really make me connect with the horrificness that was World War One.
Because we had enough time to invest in the people that we were watching,
which is possible. But for me, it was just like, I mean, this is just YouTube. Okay, there's this history. It's called Simple History. Check them out; they're bloody awesome. And they did stuff about World War One runners, and they told a story about that where there was a guy who had to do a mission. Had to run a mission to this other unit. And by the time we got to the unit, this was after dodging sniper fire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because the Germans and the English, World War One was very, I don't say admirable, but in comparison of World War Two, this was just a nation that felt they were being bullied, trying to stretch their legs, and we were just like, well, no. So World War One, very simplified of it, and so there was a bit of an admiration between soldiers. It was a bit sort of like snipers. The snipers sort of knew they had to kill him, but at the same time was like, if I don't, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. And the English snipers are the same. We've got to kill these German runners, but if we don't, it's one of them. Like, you know what I mean? No one wanted to be a runner.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, someone has to do it. So there was a bit of sort of give and take between the soldiers, like, you know what I mean, on either side of the army. But this guy delivers his message as he should have. It's fantastic. But then a wire comes in from like another position to say that the position he's come from has been overrun by Germans. So they tell the runner, we can't go back, and he says, well, no, I'm going back. Balls to that. Like, that's bullshit. Like, that's bad intelligence. There's no way it got overrun. I can't only come from there 2 days ago. Like, we had so many troops. So he takes the journey back again, being shot at, shells, machine gun fire, managed to survive it all, gets back there, lo and behold, it had been fucking took. And when he sprang over there, he jumped over there. There were 5 Germans that were in that particular bit that he jumped into. 4 of them ran off, and then one of them surrendered. Oh, and by the way, on the first trip that he took there, he managed to capture 10 German soldiers and turn them over.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't that sound like a fucking movie?
Yeah. So for you personally, in your own opinion, there just wasn't enough going on in the story.
It sounds horrible to say, man, because they've tried to be really, like, especially with a certain specific... And I don't want to say that particular mission in history was boring as fuck. But you know what else would be a boring history thing? The guy who had to do the autopsy on JFK has been after he got shot. It'd be a shit movie.
Right.
The movie about him getting shot, I imagine, would be quite entertaining. But the guy who has to sit there and go, well, head wound, well, there you go, there's your... I bet that's a shit film.
Okay, that's
as bad as that sounds like, you know what I mean.
There was
it's just if you wanted to showcase the sheer bravery of what it meant to step over into no man's land, and the horrific side of war, I just felt like, I mean, that would be a better choice.
So would you have a most favourite scene?
Oh, don't get me wrong, you have definitely got favourite scenes in this whole film. Okay. My favourite scene is the one you get first on when we settle a bet for us. Which one's what day is it? That was my favourite scene.
That is pretty cool
because it checks off humour. It checks off
reality.
the bad living conditions, because we were basically in a hole in the fucking underground, weren't they? Like just a bit of a dugout. It looked pretty shit. Yeah. So it showed the horror of war, like the living conditions they were in. And it just showed how long they'd fucking been there. The fact that these guys had last track of days, like they'd been there that long. They were like, "Shit, is it Thursday?" No, I'm sure it's. And they bet on it, which is hilarious as well, because you know what I mean. They just sit there going, "I bet you 10 bob, it's fucking Thursday." And someone's like, "Fuck you, I bet you." And that's just funny for me. Like that's real. It's real to me. That is, I can believe.
I did enjoy that. I think one favourite or scene that kept me on edge the most was when they were in the tunnels underground. And the rat.
Oh, that was an amazing.
Triggered the tripwire.
Tripwire, that was an amazing.
And
that's probably second
from the rubble.
Yeah, man.
That was a well shot scene for me.
Well, that was just a crazy scene anyway, because they just did really well in that whole scene when they go deep in enemy lines, and it's the lines that they've reached after crossing no man's land, which I want to say the attention to detail in no man's land was fucking amazing.
Yeah. Some of the horses dead on the floor were decomposed, half and half.
Crazy. Yeah. And then when they get into the Germans' lines, it's like no one's there. Yeah. Like they have abandoned. They've abandoned those lines. They've moved back. But when they go into the underground part, it's just their torches. Yeah. Which were really shit. Which back in the day they really were.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And they're just walking around like, and it's like it was nice. Because they could have done it where they brighten it up a little bit so the audience can see what was going on. And they could have done the thing that Game of Thrones season 7 did, where they just went, "Oh yeah, but it's dead dark and no one can see what's going on, so I want the audience to not know what's going on." And we're all like, "Fuck that! Just fucking show us." Like, we want to be able. If we're watching it, we want to see it. So they a nice middle ground with that, and that bit with the rat and the trip mine. I mean, I will say they did do tension well in this film, because
yeah.
There's hardly a fucking scene where something isn't happening to these two blokes, or eventually that one bloke.
Like,
fucking honest to God, they're
consistently running into issues.
And the tension's good, because whenever they get to a new location, you yourself will start going, "Oh shit, what's gonna fucking happen?" Like you're almost looking out for it. So I will give it that. Like the tension's wicked.
He's lost his friend, and he's on his own. And then also another
regiment. Yeah,
he bumps into this other regiment, or they cross paths with him, and even when the lorries are struggling to get it, he has to get it and push, and it's like consistently it's just stuff.
Oh, can this guy not get a fucking brake? Honest to God,
even sit in the back of a truck
and just get a lift somewhere.
Somewhere like something has to go wrong.
No, it was just good. And then when he gets to a town, and 5 seconds, then the fucking sniper's trying to get him. Yeah. And it's clever, like it does the tension well, I'll give it that, but it just wasn't entertaining enough. Like I know I feel bad, because like you could show this in schools, like you could do a World War I project, you could show this film and like it would be educational. Yeah. You really could. Yeah. Because it was good, but at the same it just wasn't entertaining in my eyes. Yeah. It was entertaining enough to warrant to go and see the film. It wasn't as entertaining as it could have been in my eyes, like so. I still recommend that you go and watch it by all means, because it is a technical feat. Yeah. The actors, as much as we don't get enough time with the dynamic duo that is from the start. Yeah. The one that you are left with, I wish I knew his name. Sorry. The main guy. Every cast member in this, from an extra to anybody who has lines to anyone that's got main screen time, is phenomenal, and they really do their bit. Like there isn't anybody that's not doing their best to sell you the fact that they are who they are in this fucking film.
Because you're consistently following these two guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that cinematic review for 1917.
I've been Alex, and if you could do me a massive favour, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and always leave us a comment. We're always happy to hear what you guys have got to say about our videos. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you next time.
See you on the next one.
Goodbye.